for joining us. Well, I am Vishakha and a member of SEL and hosting this evening session. This is the prestigious forum of the Society for Endangered and Lesser Known Languages, also called SEL, which was founded in the year 2011 by Professor Kavita Rastogi, with the aim to revitalize endangered and lesser known languages by bringing together like-minded people to document such languages, describe their grammars, and prepare dictionaries and pedagogical materials for the native communities. SEL has been working on several indigenous languages since its inception for the purpose of preservation and documentation, and takes initiative to reach a larger community of dedicated researchers and professionals, and is making effort to provide grants and scholarships to facilitate research in lesser known languages in remote corners of the country. Most of us here know that every year SEL organizes International Conference for Endangered and Lesser Known Languages, also called ILKL, in various universities and institutes across the country. SEL also makes provision for the linguists and language activists to publish their work on the lesser known and endangered languages in their bilingual, biannual, peer-reviewed e-journal called Vak Manthan. In addition, SEL instructs, encourages, and trains dedicated researchers through online workshops, lectures, and various online activities. This evening, SEL is conducting the last session, the 6th session and the last session of ForSELbySEL series, where SEL members present their ongoing research, and a senior SEL member who is an expert and a senior member of SEL provide guidelines and suggestions. I'm just finding out the, yes. So this evening, our presenter is Dr. Farooq Mir, and he's presenting on phonological processes in illiterate
Ma'am, you are not audible to me.
Vishakha, are you there?
I think we lost her, ma'am.
I think she lost her connection. So let me take from here. Dr. Farooq Mir is going to present his work on phonological processing in illiterate Kashmiri speakers. And I'm also happy and I'm very thankful to Professor Azaz, who is also present here as an expert. Most of us know him very well. He's presently heading 2 departments, as I mentioned earlier, Department of Linguist. I always knew that he is a linguist, but gradually I learned that he writes in Urdu and he is a good literary person also, and he writes in Kashmiri also. And presently he's heading the Department of Urdu also. So congratulations for that, Azazji, because I know that managing and heading one department is quite a cumbersome work. And you are doing and managing two departments simultaneously. So I salute you for that.
Thank you, ma'am.
I'm so sorry.
Vishaka, are you there?
Yes, I'm there.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, so this evening I was having some problem with the internet actually. So our presenter this evening is Dr. Farooq Mir from the Cluster University of Jammu and is a CEL member. He will be presenting on phonological processing in illiterate Kashmiri speakers. And this last session is pertaining to a very new domain. I believe neurocognitive perspective of understanding the linguistic abilities of producing sounds by a section of Kashmiri speakers. Well, we'll get to hear from you, so stay tuned. And our expert for this evening is Professor Aizaz M. Sheikh, who is the head at the Department of Urdu as well as Linguistics in the University of Kashmir, and is a senior CEL member. His area of research includes Kashmiri social linguistics in the area of maintenance and shift phenomena, media linguistics, stylistics, translation, descriptive linguistics, description and documentation of endangered and lesser known languages. He teaches a wide domain of subjects in linguistics, general linguistics, foundations of linguistics, phonetics, semantics and pragmatics, Indo-Aryan and Dardic, translation and lexicography, stylistics, ELT, English communicative skills, language and media. We welcome on the forum Professor Aizaz M. Sheikh. Welcome, sir. And now may I invite the speaker for this evening, Dr. Farooq Mir.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much. Before I start my presentation, I would like to convey my heartfelt gratitude to all the CEL members, particularly the presiding, Professor Kavita Rastogi, and to Professor Aizaz Saab for being there and providing me with a chance to share my ongoing research, a part of my ongoing research. So this presentation is part of my paper, which is a working paper. It's almost completed, but we are just communicating it. And I'm doing this with along with a neurosurgeon. He's from Kashmir and is luckily my cousin. So I got all the important tools which we needed from his lab at Government Medical College in Srinagar. So this topic is phonological processing in illiterate Kashmiri speakers. First of all, let me talk about phonological processing. Phonological processing is not like phonological processes. We have different types of phonological processes in every language. But when we say phonological processing, we refer to a comprehensive process, or a process related to the comprehension of language and its units. For example, here we can say phonological processing is a cognitive ability that involves perceiving, processing, and manipulating the sounds of language. Those sounds are also known as phonemes. So phonological processing is by and large the manipulation of phonemes, different phonemes for acquisition, different phonemes for speech use in speech, and different phonemes for generating different types of sentences and language material. So phonological processing, it plays a crucial role in various language-related tasks, including speaking, listening, reading, and writing. Had there been no phonological processing, the aim of communication, the primary aim of language, that's communication, would have been not possible. So what are the aspects of this phonological processing? There are certain aspects. There are actually many aspects. I am just discussing some important aspects which are related to my work over here. So one of them I would like to discuss is phonemic awareness. Phonemic awareness is the ability to recognize and manipulate individual phonemes in spoken language. This phonemic awareness helps to categorize and form memory regarding different and distinctive sounds and distinctive sound patterns, so that one word can be created or formed or produced different than another word or than another lexeme. This skill is foundational for learning to read and write, also as it enables us to understand the relationship between letters and sounds. Phonemic awareness includes tasks such as blending phonemes to form words. For example, ka, a, t. These words like in cat is like ka, a, t. These words are such a word like cat is formed by these phonemes. Now, if a person is not aware of the phonemes, a person cannot relate the phonemes in proper fashion or proper manner in order to create a word. Then there is another aspect which is called phonological memory. Now, phonological memory refers to the ability to hold and mentally manipulate phonological information in short-term memory. For example, remembering a phone number, remembering a new word, or a sequence someone just said requires phonological memory. So after phonemic awareness, phonological memory comes into play. Then we have the retrieval, this phonological retrieval. This aspect involves the accessing stored phonological information, such as retrieving the correct pronunciation of a word from a long-term memory when needed. So these three aspects of phonological processing plays important role in shaping the general language of a person. Now, in schooling, when we see in schooling, this phonological processing is being literally taught, or it's being exposed, or the children are being exposed to it. How? By corresponding the phonemes or phonemic information with the graphemic information. For example, children are being asked to learn the letters for corresponding to certain sounds, and then those letters are being joined in some fashion in order to have a spelling. So children are being asked to remember the spelling or retain the spelling. That spelling actually becomes the retention of that spelling becomes the phonological memory. But such a case is not observed in those individuals who have never been to school, who have never been taught. For example, who have never been exposed, or who have never intentionally, or who have never been taught intentionally or unintentionally taught a foreign or a second language. So those individuals which we define as illiterate individuals, the individuals who have never been to school, never, not even once, right? This phonological processing shall be different. So this research aims at trying to figure out how this phonemic awareness, phonological memory, and this phonological retrieval or phonemic retrieval works in illiterate individuals. Now, purposes. Why shall we study phonological processing? Now, phonological processing and reading, there is a link, which is a link between phonological processing and reading. For example, phonological processing is closely linked to reading skills. In alphabetic writing systems, for example, English, the ability to connect letters to their corresponding phonemes, which I was just discussing about, is crucial for reading words accurately and fluently. Individuals with strong phonological processing skills tend to be better readers because they can decode unfamiliar words and understand the relationship between spoken and written language. Second purpose, phonological processing can help in language acquisition. Phonological processing also influences language development in young children. Strong phonological skills facilitate vocabulary expansion, grammar acquisition, and overall language comprehension. Now, phonological processing disorders. We can correct certain phonological disorders by having the knowledge and by having the expertise of phonological processing. For example, some individuals may experience difficulties with phonological processing, leading to conditions known as phonological processing disorders or phonological disorders. These individuals may struggle with phonemic awareness, speech production, and reading and writing skills. Early intervention and targeted support can be effective in helping individuals with such difficulties. This phonological processing disorder can lead to certain learning disorders. For example, dysgraphia, dyslexia, and the others. In a movie which is quite famous among children and among the teachers, there was a Indian cinema movie, Tare Zameen Par. The child shown in that movie is the man, we can say the protagonist of is having a disorder of reading. That child is unable to read. Why? The reason can be the phonological disorder. So if that person is being treated through the skills which will be imparted, aiming at making the child understand the different phonemes, and making the child able to correspond those different phonemes with different, we can say, graphemes, then that phonological disorder can be corrected. Now, as I said, in schooling, we generally teach students and we make them learn this phonological awareness or phonemic awareness. In school, what is the role of the school? In school, schools typically provide explicit instruction in phonemic awareness, which is the ability to identify and manipulate individual phonemes in spoken words. Teachers may use various activities and games, Teachers may use various activities and games to help students develop this essential skill, such as blending and segmenting sounds, rhyming exercises, and phoneme substitution tasks, etc. Then phonics instruction. Phonics is the relationship between letters and their corresponding sounds in a language or in a written language per se. Now, schools teach phonics to help students understand the connection between letters and phonemes, which is vital for decoding words while reading. By learning phonics, students can apply their phonological processing skills to read and write effectively. Number third, literary activities and reading programs. Schools often implement literary programs that incorporate reading and writing activities to foster phonological processing skills. These activities may include reading aloud, guided reading sessions, and writing exercises. Regular exposure to written language helps students recognize phonological patterns and improve their phonemic awareness. Now, oral language development. Schools can help in oral language development of children by imparting the knowledge of this phonemic awareness or phonological processing. Now, schooling provides opportunities for oral language development, which is essential for phonological processing. Classroom discussions, presentations, and language-rich environments enable students to engage with spoken language, develop vocabulary, and strengthen their phonological memory and retrieval. Then, in case of individualized support, for example, some students need an individualized support in order to overcome any problem or deficit of this phonological processing. So schools identify students who may struggle with phonological processing skills and offer targeted interventions or support. These interventions may involve one-to-one or small group instruction to address specific phonological processing difficulties. Now, reading and writing practice. Consistent reading and writing practice in schools help reinforce phonological processing skills. Students regularly encounter new words, encounter different phonological patterns, and refine their decoding abilities, which further enhances their phonological processing capabilities. Now, literary assessments. Schools conduct literary assessments to monitor students' progress in phonological processing and identify areas that may need improvement. These assessments provide valuable feedback to teachers and help tailor instructional approaches to meet individual students' needs. These assessments are in present Indian curriculum, in language teaching curriculum per se. These assessments are seen as different exercises like cloze tests, reading tests, writing tests. Then schools also promote a positive attitude towards reading. If schools play a significant in fostering a positive attitude, then positive attitude towards reading and literacy, then students will be motivated. Students will be motivated for reading and learning to read. By creating a supportive and encouraging environment, students are more likely to engage with reading and writing activities, which in turn strengthens their phonological processing skills. Now, the last point, cultural and linguistic considerations. In diverse school settings, generally present in India, in diverse school settings, it is essential to consider cultural and linguistic factors that may influence phonological processing skills. Teachers may need to adapt instructional approaches to support students with different language backgrounds. Now, why we discussed about this role of schools in phonological processing? The role of schools is discussed with the purpose, or the purpose of schooling is discussed with a purpose here in this work, because it is the schooling where only we can see this phonological processing or phonemic awareness being worked out or being exercised. It is not being worked out in mother tongues, where we generally acquire a mother tongue. So it's not being exercised there. It's rather covert over there. So it's rather covert. So we are unable to actually figure out how phonological processing will be on a glance. We cannot figure out. We will be unable to figure out how phonological processing will be working for the betterment of a child's or anyone's language. But in schools, we can very well do this through a guided curriculum or curricular activity. That's why the role of schooling is important in imparting the phonemic awareness, in developing the phonological memory, and in developing the skill of phonological retrieval. Now, the intention behind this work is that research works as part of the literature review. The research works which were conducted show that the research works carried out on the basis of various behavioral, psychological, psychophysiological, and neurocognitive studies show that there are significant differences between the cognitive performances of literate and illiterate individuals, which lead to different types of abilities like spatial abilities, memory, language, and praxic abilities among the individuals. Now, language itself is a cognitive ability. Language itself is such a cognitive ability, which also requires categorization, which also requires memory, which also requires what we call the retrieval Okay. Similarly, like all other cognitive abilities, this language or this phonological processing shall be worked out as a cognitive process. Again, many studies carried out on phonological awareness and phonemic awareness of individuals suggest and they claim that there is a significant effect of schooling on an individual's cognitive abilities. It's not only the language that is being developed by the language taught by the language teacher in a school, but there are certain other cognitive abilities that are polished, that are nurtured, that are developed by the process of schooling. Now, what is the catch? Why shall we go for this study? The earlier studies mainly focused on literacy as a factor for affecting the phonological processing, as I said. Now, thereby other linguistic, not only the phonological processing, but other linguistic and cognitive factors also, right? But what about illiterate population? Illiterate population also performs well on other cognitive, abilities and other cognitive tasks. If we give a sample of illiterate population, for example, the task of categorization of black color from the red colors, we are giving them two different colors, so they can very well differentiate between two colors. If we give them a three-dimensional activity, for example, differentiating these animals like deers, like sheep, from bigger animals like elephants, camels, horses, right? They can very well do that. Why? How can they? Because they are performing well on cognitive abilities. So this study aims to work out the performances of illiterate Kashmiri speakers on a psycho-linguistic test battery comprised of 3 different tests. So this is why we are trying to study this phonological processing in illiterate and Kashmiri speakers, because I'm myself a Kashmiri speaker. So it's easy for me to work on that language and work with the people. So what was the sample? The sample comprised of elderly population, because we were unable to find those people who are young in age and they are illiterate. So people have been semi-illiterate, like they have been to school up to class 10, class 12, then they have dropped or they have left the school by some socio-cultural reason or by some socio-economic reason anyway, but they are the semi-literates. Here in this population, here in this research, the population was selected as total illiterate population. Illiteracy as defined by Government of India norms, like the people who have never been to school, never, not once, who have never been to school, were selected here. And what was the procedure? The procedure was, we asked people, can you read this and can you write this? Okay, so those who were able to read and those who were able to write, they were chalked out, left out. They were not taken into consideration. But the people who replied that I cannot read it because I have never been to school, I cannot write anything because I have never been to school, I don't know how to read, how to write. So this was the procedure, a sort of innocuous deception. We would show them some material to read, they would reply in negation that they are unable to read it. So we could confirm that by their saying that we have never been to school, we could confirm by that they have never been to school. And among that population, we had a simple random sampling. We did not categorize anyone. We had just simple random sampling. And for the sake of certain procedures and for the sake of certain experiments, we were supposed to take all of them to Srinagar. So we have managed to provide them with anything they required at that time. For example, travel, their fooding and everything. We managed to do all that because we had to confirm that if their ERPs, this event related potentials, if their ERPs are on these phonological processing or phonemic awareness are equivalent to the ERPs produced or ERPs seen in, observed in the people who are literate. So this was the type of the sample, and this sample was from the northern parts of Kashmir, mainly in district Baramulla and district Bandipora, right? And then their age, the age was, it was more than 60 years, like 50, 60. Everyone was more than 50 years of age or 60 years of age. And what was the task? The task was given, there were 3 different tasks given to them. One was for the phonemic awareness, another was for, phoneme deletion, and phoneme deletion had 2 different types of tasks. It was initial phoneme deletion and final phoneme deletion. And then the final task was random automatized naming. This random automatized naming was for 2 different things. One was 2 different linguistic, units. One was for the words and another was for numerals or numbers. So the number of the informants was taken as 40. We had actually enumerated 60 people, but many of them were unable to, make it to the place where we used to conduct the tests. So they were unable to. So gender is all. Like we had some female these informants also. There is a message how random sample was possible when number of population was not known. I would like to discuss these questions in the later part. Okay, later on.
Yes, at the end, Dr. Farooq, you continue with your presentation.
Yes,
whatever queries are asking, don't get sort of distracted from your presentation. We can have that at the end.
Okay, thank you, sir. This is Acha. So what are the tools? What were the tools? We had first we prepared tests. Those tests were prepared in my PhD research actually at IIT Bombay in 2015. So certain tests were used only for these illiterate on these illiterate individuals, and the tools were used as first we managed to use E-Prime. E-Prime is a language. It's we can say it's a data collection software. So it's a data collection software. It's also known as English Prime. So we can code or we can prepare different types of tasks on E-Prime, and we can work with the sample population or informants, right? So E-Prime 2.0 was used for this work, and we had used only the spoken content. So informants would only listen to. They were not going to read anything, or they were not going to, because on E-Prime we give tasks which are different. Like we can give the tasks for color categorization. We can give tasks for 2D, 3D categorization. We can give tasks for any other things like reading or something. But here it was only voice, or we can say the sounds. So the task was given only in sound fashion or sound manner. Then these informants were made to undergo certain or some we can say electroencephalography sessions. Electroencephalography sessions. We had a 64 channel EEG managed there at Medical College in Srinagar, and we tried to check the event related potential. For this very experiment, what we did is we had 10 literate people as our we can say we could later on compare. So first what we did is we got those 10 people which were literate, and those 10 people, we gave them the same task in the same fashion. They also listened to the task, they also responded to the task, and we recorded their ERPs. For example, P300 and other types of ERPs. So we recorded their ERPs at certain times. For example, when we were giving a task, the ERP corresponding to that task was recorded. It was recorded because in order to confirm whether we are using whether we are going to use, or we are going to extract the exact information from illiterate population, we were supposed to confirm it that the ERPs or event related potentials are by and large same for the same task between the two groups, literate and illiterate. And then the ERPs were analyzed on BESA, brain electrical source analysis, and then later on we tried to figure out certain statistical analysis also. And finally, we had for the prediction of this phonological processing, we tried artificial neural network. We had not designed that artificial neural network, but we use multiple perceptron with certain conditions. So that computational model was later on used for these predictions. Now, what we observed that ARP analysis procedures support the fact that phonological processing occurs in illiterate individuals as well, because at the same task, as I said, at the same time, the task was given, there was a response, there was an ERP, and those ERPs were almost same. So it leads to the confirmation of phonological processing, that to the real-time processing. And it was not something like memory retrieval. They were not, they were not recalling anything. Rather, they were responding to the stimulus, and the ERPs were the real-time ERPs. Okay. Please give me a sec. Here. So the question, then what makes phonological processing possible in illiterate individuals? Now, language proficiency tasks were provided. For example, I said like we used E prime, and those language proficiency tasks were given in RAN in the form of random automatized naming for words and for numbers, and then sentence repetition. They were given 2 sentences, they repeated 2 sentences. They were given 3 sentences, they repeated 3 sentences. So a lot of things were analyzed there. But here we could finally understand that all these illiterate people, they were quite proficient in at least spoken language. Now, in context of phonological processing, we are supposed to understand here proficiency, because unlike the literate people, these illiterate individuals have not been, they have not been instructed, they have not been, given any lessons for understanding or developing the phonemic awareness. So this is the proficiency which can tell us something about the phonemic awareness which is accurate actually in these illiterate individuals. So in this context of phonological processing, proficiency indicates a strong and well-developed ability to perceive, process, and manipulate the sounds of a language or phonemes efficiently and accurately. In illiterate individuals, it's about spoken language, as I said. Now, the proficiency, we know that if a person is proficient in language, we can have the degrees of proficiency. Now, if a person is proficient in one aspect of language, for example, spoken, so we can say that this proficiency enables the person to communicate confidently, right? Now, this confident communication is actually based on confident categorization or confident, understanding of phonemic, different phonemes, which is phonemic awareness, right? So, second, now this this language proficiency facilitates language production. If a person is proficient in a language, he can produce different constructions or sentences which are not known to him, which are not produced by him before. So it facilitates language production, and it assists us in learning new words, that's by categorization or pattern formation. And then it supports the cognitive processes, like proficient phonological processing supports working memory, as individuals can hold and manipulate phonological information more effectively, right? And finally, it boosts the confidence for speech acts or for effective communication. Now, proficiency for illiterate individuals enables improved phonemic awareness. We already discussed about it. This improved phonemic awareness, for example, I can read this for you. It's like proficiency in this skill allows illiterate individuals to distinguish different sounds in different words, identifying rhymes, identifying different patterns, and understanding the segmentation and blending of sounds in spoken language. Now, what are the results? The results were there were three different types of results. First, there was an ERP confirmation. Second, there were results based on statistical correlation. And the third, the results were based on ANN, artificial neural network, for predictions. Okay. Now, all the computed values, apart from this ERP analysis, which confirmed that we can go for phonological processing tests in illiterate population, the statistical analysis had certain computed values, and those computed values were positive, which means that all the correlations are following a similar trend of increasing and thus have much likelihood in between. Such a correlational pattern suggests that the illiterate participants have performed under the effect of this independent variable. Okay, this was the first test result. Second result was the statistical significance of some values observed in the matrix, correlational matrix, revealed that there is a significant effect of one on the other. It means the two levels of significance at alpha is equal to 0.05, and where p was less or equal to 0.01, that means the correlation is significant, suggests that there exist differences between the patterns of correlations, which suggests that different strategies are used by illiterate participants under the effect of this control variable. Okay. Now, the question is here, what are the different strategies? So there are not only linguistic strategies, there can be extra linguistic strategies which can be used by the individual population in order to understand or in order to undergo a complete phonological processing. Those strategies can be cultural strategies. Those can be, for example, cultural cues. Okay, cultural cues can work as strategy in order to categorize and in order to form the memory. Now, the third result, the value of R equivalent to 0.62 between final phoneme deletion and phonemic awareness is the highest correlation obtained so far. Now, what does this suggest? This suggests that they perform relatively better for phonological tests, which is R is equal to 0.53 obtained for RAN. So, as I said, we had three different tests: phonemic awareness test, we had this phoneme deletion test, and we had this, we can say random automatized naming. Now, this random automatized naming, which is a phonological test, it was seen that the illiterate population performed better on, two different RAN tasks. Now what does this suggest? This suggests that it's not only the schooling that has an effect, which is studied in earlier research, or which I also studied for the same population in my PhD, that schooling has effect. And there we had given some degrees of effects, how much effect can have this type of curriculum and that type of curriculum on phonological processing. Now, illiterate population does not have any exposure of any schooling, so it is only the phonological, it's only the language proficiency which has been developed through years or across time, so well that people are able to differentiate between different phonemes, different shapes, or different sound patterns, so that they can relate those sound patterns directly, not to graphemes, but directly to semantic cues, and they can provide meaning, or they can extract, or they can provide meaning, right? So this is the paper which suggests that it's not only, this is the final statement of this paper, is that it is not only the phonological, it's not only the schooling or the effect of school that is important for phonological processing, but it is the we can say the language proficiency. It is the strength or the degree of language proficiency for any aspect of language, whether it is spoken or whether it is written even. So proficiency of proficiency contributes, finally we can say proficiency contributes to the phonological awareness or phonemic awareness or phonological processing of a person. Thank you very much. This is still a working paper. We are going to communicate it. So please, if any questions are there.
Thank you so much. That was a wonderful presentation. I
you.
would request the expert, Professor Azaz, to give his opinions, to give his expert opinions.
Dr. Bishaka, I was seeing some queries right there. If you have got some time, can we give
Yes,
maybe 2-3
sure.
minutes to the participants?
Yes, sure.
Some comments right there. So if somebody can unmute and ask the question. I could see some comments were in the chat box also.
Yes, one comment is there already.
Yeah.
Dr. Farooq, you can go ahead with answering this question.
Okay, sir, one question is here. How random sampling was possible when the number of population was not known? When the number of population was not known. Okay, what we did is, first we checked for illiterate population, right? Then we found a group of at least nearly 60 people. I told this, I guess, nearly 60 people, and among those 60 we chose randomly whoever could come with us for ERP analysis. That turned out to be our sample, and that's how I call it simple random.
I believe there is no other question, perhaps.
Yeah, I think Mosel is raising his hand.
I am having one question.
Please.
Yes, Professor, I just said
Please go ahead.
But the question, not question, it is rather query to at least to shed light on myself, that the illiterate, this illiterate is a heavily loaded term. This is, it has different manifestations, because generally we used to view the people, composition of the people of a standard background or non-standard background of this dialect area, that dialect area, like this.
True.
So
True.
this illiterate person, illiterate Kashmiri, I understand that there are the young people, young boys or girls, that I understand, I am convinced about that. But I am interested to know what is the background, language background of this illiterate Kashmiri, or whether Kashmiri is having only one standard or Kashmiri is having more than one dialect. I am interested. Accordingly, these illiterate Kashmiris, this proficiency, that you have got the result that they can reproduce, they can identify, and this thing they can generate all these things. It will be a guideline if I am enlightened with the composition of that illiterate Kashmiris. If you can you please shed light on that?
I could not get it. I'm sorry.
Oh,
So,
I'm so sorry.
ma'am, are you asking for the role of dialectal variations?
No, not the role of dialect, the composition of the illiterate Kashmiris that you have conducted and canvassed. You conducted your survey and canvassed one questionnaire. So
Yes, ma'am.
illiterate, what is the composition? What is the background of that illiterate Kashmiris? So my question is that only if I
Which
get
type of
that
background?
answer,
Social background, economic
social
background?
background. Kashmiri is not a. Do you feel that Kashmiri is having only one dialect, means one only standard variety, or it is
No, ma'am.
having
Right,
other
right.
dialect varieties also?
There are
So
dialect varieties. Yes, ma'am.
You see,
uh,
Dr. Farooq, ma'am is asking about the regional. You did talk about it. I had this point also in my mind. You have
Sorry.
taken, you have got at least 2 or 3 dialects in the valley itself.
Yes,
So
sir.
what, ma'am, what you have taken from the
it actually,
north
Yes,
of
yes, yes.
Kashmir?
I understand now, sir.
It is
May
a
I?
Kamraj dialect, but there are the central dialects and then the Maharaj
Yes, sir.
because
dialect.
the
That's what
proficiency
she's saying.
output cannot be the same, I think
Same,
so.
yeah.
Mhm.
So if you
So,
can discuss in this
yes,
way.
yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. May I? Thank you very much,
Yeah,
ma'am.
please,
I
please.
understood it now. So, sir, may I respond?
Yes. Oh,
Yes, yes,
sorry.
please go ahead.
Okay, okay. So, see, we can say that we are talking about phonemic awareness. Okay, we are talking about phonemic awareness, which is, for example, when we gave them the task of initial phoneme, okay, deletion of initial phoneme. So the chosen words were, for example, those words which were known to all. First, what we have done, we have, there were a lot of background checking and understanding of things. Though one of the factors was that since we are not giving them a dialect, a variant of something, we are asking them whatever I will say, you just repeat it. Okay. So, or whatever you hear through this headphone, you just repeat it. You just respond to it by repetition. For example, a candidate was listening to "I am a boy" in his mother tongue. So the response was "I am a boy," right? So it was just a repetition task. Fine. So in this repetition task, the role of dialectal variation is neglected, because the informants do not focus on different meanings or on different ways of using the phonological form. For example, in some cases, one sound may be ma, another sound may be ma. Now this ma and ma might be same in might be the same thing in 2 different dialects, but the word was given as ma, for example, and they were asked to repeat it first. Second thing, there was, like in Baramulla district and Bandipora district, Professor Ejaz Sahab knows, since he knows very well that in these 2 districts, we have a prominent dialect, Kamraz, right? Regional dialect, Kamraz, right? So the way we generally speak, the way we generally talk, the way we generally use words, So it's how those words were chosen. It's not like there was any dialectal variation to be considered by the informants, or informants never. First we let them listen to everything, and then they said yes, I can repeat it. So there was a mock test, they were repeating it nicely, right? Because
No,
ERP analysis is like, we have to make a person sit so calm that even breathing must be like as low as possible, right? So that there will not be artifacts in the this ERP wave. Okay, so ma'am, in order to make them understand everything, so that we cannot have any transference of meaning to phonological component, from meaning to phonological, or phonological to meaning component, we had asked them to do not focus on what anything means. You just repeat what is being said, and this is how
yes,
we
sir, I
build
am
up
convinced.
dialectal.
One thing here. Yeah,
Yes,
one
ma'am.
thing here, you please listen. Because if with the help of our Bengali language, am
Yes,
I
ma'am.
allowed to? It is because suppose this Bengali word is ja, this palatal stop, ja, ja.
Mhm.
In there, if our dialectal background little boy,
Okay.
the standard people, when they will be pronouncing it palatally,
Mhm.
but the dialectal boy, in no way he can pronounce it in palatally, rather as not as a stop, but as
Ma'am,
an
that is the
as a
phonological
spirant,
analysis, now.
as a spirant. So if you tell them to repeat also whatever they have been asked
Bilkul,
to repeat,
bilkul,
they are
bilkul.
also, that spirantization will affect our standard Bengali palatalization.
Bilkul,
So
ma'am.
I am telling that whether this type of phonological this production barrier is there among the illiterate, what you mean
Right,
illiterate among
right, right,
this is
ma'am.
the thing I wanted to clarify myself.
Ma'am. Right, right, right. So in this paradigm, the way you are asking is the phonologic. It is phonological analysis or phonemic analysis. So here we were not doing phonemic analysis. Rather, we were trying to figure out the cognitive process. And the cognitive process is figured out by checking out whether the cognitive process is happening or not. First of all, categorization, whether a person is able to categorize or not. That categorization is based on the deep structure, underlying structure, which is on the mind of the boy. For example, in your case, this palatal sound, whether the sound is palatal or it's not palatal. For example, if it turns out to be dental, it will hardly matter for us, because the underlying structure is the shape of the phoneme, which is pa, which is cha. Okay, which is cha actually. So the
And
underlying shape,
recognition. Your area is recognition of the
recognition,
phoneme.
comprehension. Yes, ma'am. Yes,
Thank
yes.
you.
So comprehension works on the underlying structures, ma'am. That's why.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am.
I think Mosel is asking something. He's raised his hand.
Yes, sir. Yes, madam, thank you. See, ladies and gentlemen and my friends, I am not a linguist. I am not a say academic linguist. I am a community linguist. I have been listening to Dr. Amir intently, and I want to congratulate him that he had a wonderful presentation. And in that presentation, I overheard that phonological processing exercise. Phonological processing exercise. That how, we have in our community, we have our dormitory, girls' dormitory and boys' dormitory as a school. The term of English language school is that dormitory in our community. So there, in that dormitory, the boys learn to how to behave, the girls learn to how to behave, how to speak, how to, cordially speak to each other. So, the phonological processing exercise, particularly, I stuck to that point. How can I introduce? Can you just give us an example of phonological processing exercise?
Okay. Sir, do you ask me to provide an example for phonological processing to be taught in school? Is it like that?
Yes, I have already told you that we don't have a school.
Yes, yes.
These illiterate people do not have a school.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And we have only dormitory system.
Illiterate people can be made phonologically aware by giving them the correspondence of giving them the differences between different phonological units or phonemes. For example, if we make them aware, illiterate people generally speak and they don't have knowledge of these phonemes, or they are not aware. They are not aware means consciously aware, but their subconscious mind is exactly aware of the different phoneme categorization. So in case of illiterate people, illiterate population, it's better to give them the differences. For example, you just tell them we have a sound boy. Now this boy is ba or ya, boy. You can just give them this differentiation between the sounds, okay? Or we can provide, sir, for example, with the syllabus, we can create a syllabus so that we can first make them to understand this type of sounds, then another type of sounds, just to distinguish from one sound to another sound. They don't have to understand any other properties of the sounds. They don't have to go for the place of articulation and manner of articulation of those sounds. They just have to understand the differentiation between the sounds so that they can say, for example, cha-cha is different from cha-chi on the basis of phonological structure, right? Because there is at the end, they can very well relate, and they can sense later on that there is a and e at the end of cha, right? Cha, chi, cha, cha, for example, that. So this is the only drill we can give to these illiterate individuals to be phonologically aware, right? Second is for phonological processing in schools. This is being these curriculums, such curricular activities are being performed in special schools. For example, those schools where children with learning disabilities are admitted, and those schools are being given a curriculum in which language teaching is not alphabetical. Like in our schools, we teach A, B, C, D, then we join A, P, P, L, E, apple. We join O, F, T, E, N, then we say it's often. And our children have a lot of confusion between the types of orthographies. For example, if the orthographies are transparent, having the one-to-one phonemic and orthographic correspondence, then there is no issue. But students get issues, issues in understanding the we can say deep orthographies, where we write something, we read something else, right? So in such schools, what has been done till now and is being done even in India, special schools, a syllabus is the language is being taught phonemically, not alphabetically. Language is being taught phonemically. So if you want to teach students, you don't have to teach them, for example, A, B, C. You have to teach them a, ba, Okay, a, ba, ka, sa, la, ma. So if you teach them these phonemes instead of teaching those what we say alphabet, these letters in alphabet, or those sounds which correspond to the letters in alphabet, those students will perform better. First. Second is for their assessment, there are certain tests. For example, the phoneme deletion task is wonderful task. You just give them one word, for example, tell them to cut down the last sound in some word, for example, chai. Now, if they hear or perceive the sound chai, they will drop the last sound ya, and they will feel it is cha, right? And the initial sound, for example, mummy. Now, if you ask them to cut down or drop down the first initial sound, so what they will drop, they will try to drop ma, and they will say ammi, mummy, ammi, right? Now, the point is, if we give such exercises, to the children who are going to learn phonological phonemic awareness in school, these exercises are actually helpful, and these are quite productive. These are quite productive, and these all types of these types of syllabus are available on different special school websites. So this is my response. I hope it makes some sense.
Thank you so much. What I want to say is that the term, the English language, the English word, the school, it doesn't have a specific, meaning in Indian languages. I don't know what kind of language, Tibeto-Burman or Aryan language or not, but school doesn't have in our society, but only we have is a dormitory where we learn everything.
All right.